Good morning. My name's Tom Williams, and today we're going to spend 20 minutes looking at the plan, imagining the business of your dreams and building the plan to make it happen. Let me just move on here. All right, for some, there we go. A little bit of brief background about myself. I've been a 5-time business founder. Now I work as a business coach, and my mission is to create the tools and the templates and the coaching to help founders realize their potential so they can build better businesses and we can build a better world. I'm the author of a recently released book that's now available on Amazon, Start Up, Scale Up, or Screw Up. And as the title might suggest, it includes plenty of my own misadventures as well as a few successes along the way. So why would you want to scale up? I imagine your vision might look a little bit like this. You've got ideal customers queuing up to come to you. You've got a high-performing team taking responsibility for your company's success. Meanwhile, you're planning the next strategic growth steps with your family from your villa in Bali. Well, let's start with what's your plan for next year? Most people look at next year a little bit like a continuation of what's come before. You're on a railway track, you know where you're going. You might want to increase sales by 10%, stuff a few more people into the train carriages. You might want to work on reducing your costs, using a little less coal or switching to an electric engine, if you like. But really, I think you need to look a little bit further ahead, look at the bigger picture. After all, if you don't, you may not see the obstacles or the disasters coming up, or for that mind, the opportunities. So I suggest, instead of just building a little bit on what you did last year, take a helicopter ride and look around at the big picture. What's possible for your business? What's changed in the economic environment? What's changed for your clients? What new products or services could you introduce to your existing clients? Where could you find new clients, perhaps in different territories that you could take your existing products or services to? Or what totally new innovations could you create that build on your capabilities of yourself and the team to grow your business? In other words, look at what's possible, not just what's probable. So let's start with the end in mind. Why do you want to scale? Is it to create a lifestyle? Is it to sell your business? Is it to build a legacy for the next generation, for your family? Do you have bigger, bolder visions? Do you want to change the world, change your industry, make a difference? Or is it about mastering the game? You just love what you're doing and you want to be a master of it. Or is it, as Sir Edmund Hillary put it, when we're asked, why do you want to climb Everest? Because it's there. Well, let's imagine that one of your goals is to sell the business. And even if that isn't a goal, it's a pretty good framework to have when you're thinking about how do you build your business for the future. Start by adopting the point of view of the buyer and think about who that buyer could be. Try and think of actually some specific companies or people who would be likely to buy your business, and what would be in their minds when they review the shape of your business and its future, and what questions would they ask? They're probably going to think, are you in a growth industry, or are you in a sort of an area that's dying off? Have you got a competitive advantage? Of course, one issue for small businesses is what happens when the founder leaves. Have you built a brand that's going to last beyond the founder? Of course, they're going to think about whether you're asking a fair price And can the deal be done in a way that reduces risk? It's pretty common, for example, if you are buying a small business where the founder is a key factor, to ask the founder to collect their payment over 2 or 3 years as you get the evidence that the business is going to continue to grow without the founder and having their expertise still available. And they probably also will be thinking, well, what can we do to improve the business after we buy it? And when you're looking up from where you are now and thinking about that grand future, it can be a little bit daunting. It all looks like hard work and risks along the way. So you better to actually take a leap to where you want to be 2 or 3 years down the track, because it's easier to look backwards from there and see what's the best path to get there. Imagine in some detail what your ideal business would be, and throw away your thoughts of what is possible or probable. Just imagine how you'd really like your business to be. What would the level of sales and profit would be? What would your market share be? Have you got new services? Have you changed your niche? What's your organization chart look like? How many staff have you got? And what role do you want to play? Do you want to still be full-time? Do you want to step back? Do you have to shift from being the expert to being the CEO, from being the operator to be the owner? What sort of daily routine would you like to have in an ideal setting? How would your experience, what would it actually feel like to be in that ideal business? So once you've got that detailed, think backwards from there to, let's say, a year before that, and what would the business have to look like immediately before getting to that final step? And then perhaps you have one more step before that, and then having done those steps, go back to where you are now, and it'll be a lot easier for you to see, well, what are the next steps to grow the business? Who do we hire first? What resources do we need? What marketing do we need? Do we have to raise money? And how do we plan? So strangely enough, it works better going backwards. Having done that, think about what's your mission. If you haven't seen a classic film from the 70s called The Blues Brothers, take every opportunity you can. These two characters, rather disreputable characters, one of them recently out of jail, nevertheless heard that their orphanage, their Catholic orphanage where they spent some time, is about to go bust. So they decide, well, we've got to save the orphanage. So they set themselves up on what they call a mission from God. Let's get the band back together, raise $5,000 and save the orphanage. And that sets off a rather crazy careering movie of them roaming around, avoiding jilted girlfriends, crashing hundreds of cars through shopping malls, and somehow ending up with the $5,000 to save the mission. So the point I'm making is that they were on a mission and they were not going to be stopped. So for you to get through all of the hassles, all of the daily obstacles that we know all about, and come out smiling and get on top of everything, you really need a mission that you feel almost like a mission from God, and that keeps the energy going. There's some very good research nowadays from Deloitte and other people that purpose-driven companies actually outperform. They grow actually about 3 times faster, which is quite amazing. I had a client of mine, Talent Nation, a small business, a recruiting business that decided to focus purely on recruiting for ESG, environmental sustainability and governance situations. And they did the hard work to become a certified B Corp and develop their leadership and authority in the field. And over 2 years, they managed to grow 400% and triple the number of staff and really make a serious impact and become the leaders in the field. So think about how you can align your business with a purpose that's bigger than just making a financial return, something that has a social impact. And you'll find also that a lot of staff rise to the occasion when they feel that they're going to work for a cause that is worthwhile and something that's inspiring. Okay, so you've got the goal, you've got your mission, you've got a bit of a map, but there are obstacles in the way. So how are you going to get a strategy for overcoming those obstacles? Well, sometimes the obstacle themselves can be the strategy. Do you remember the Prius, the Toyota Prius? Its performance was so slow, it became the butt of jokes and was in a classic movie with Will Ferrell and other guys. And in fact, it was called The Other Guy. If you haven't seen it, it's a fun movie that takes the piss out of the Prius. So when Elon Musk was thinking about wanting to accelerate the progress of the shift to sustainable energy with transport and thinking about electric cars, he realized that there was a negative attitude to electric cars. And while the traditional way of bringing in new innovations is to start with something smaller, cheaper, and then gradually improve it, he realized that that wasn't going to work. He needed to flip that strategy on its head and start with something that was going to break the mold of how people thought about electric cars. So he produced the Tesla, which, as we now know, has become a phenomenon at the expensive end initially, and with the power using lithium battery technology to out-accelerate a Ferrari. And, you know, YouTube has been full of people in supercars getting out-dragged by Teslas. And that really expanded the reach of Teslas and broke the mold of how people thought about electric cars. So if you're in a service industry, one of your challenges is to differentiate your service. When I was a youngster, I was working as a marketing consultant, and the advertising agency for Qantas asked me one day to come up with a new advertising campaign to differentiate TAA, which in those days was what they called the Qantas Domestic Service, from Ansett, which was the competitor before Virgin. And so I spent a week flying around on both airlines and realized that there was really no difference between the products. In those days, the airlines had 2 or 3 or 4 first-class seats up the front, and the rest of the cabin was just economy. But when I looked at the passengers, I realized that, you know, not all passengers were the same, and some of them wanted different things. So I started to think about, well, how could we differentiate what was provided for different passengers? And so I realized that there were basically 2 classes of passenger. There were people who were going flying for business, and you know, what they wanted really was just a quiet space to retain some energy, maybe get a cup of coffee and a paper, and be able to do the work and get back home in time for a late dinner. And then there were people going on holidays who wanted to start the party as soon as they got on the plane. So I wrote the agency a report and said, I think you should split the economy class into two. Put business people up the front, give them a little bit more room, a bit of peace and quiet, and then have a sliding curtain halfway down and put the holiday class at the back, let them board by the rear stairs, and let them have a bit of fun, some music, some party hats, and let them begin their holiday as soon as they get on the plane. So they sucked their thumb over that for a while, and they took up the concept of business class, which became the world's first business class. But they passed on holiday class, which I still think would have been a good idea. But how can you differentiate yourself if you're a small service company? Well, you've got a different set of obstacles. Your claims of great service at competitive prices from experienced, caring people is the same as everyone else. So apart from building on your network and referrals, you often end up competing on price. And because of that, your growth and your profit in particular are capped. So how do you overcome that situation? You really need to become the key person of influence in your space. How do you do that? You've got to differentiate yourself from others. Start by downloading your own IP. You'll be surprised what you know that you don't quite realize that you know until you sit down with a tape recorder or a pen and a paper or get interviewed by a colleague or a friend and start to spell it out. And then use what you've discovered about the way you go about things that's kind of different, your secret sauce, if you like, to post and publish thought leadership, social media, ebooks, perhaps even a paperback, speak at conferences, get yourself out there and established as a thought leader and an authority. Partner with other leaders and become the trusted authority in your space. Finally, when it comes to financial planning, everyone looks at sales and profit, but really cash is the thing. And strangely enough, it's profitable to make a profit and still go bust because you've run out of cash to pay your bills. So I suggest that when you're planning, start with a cash flow forecast and compare that each month versus your actuals. And that will give you the hard data on how your business is really going. So in summary, to develop your plan, think about what's your end game. Start there and look back. Build with a social purpose as well as a financial purpose. Look at your obstacles and how they could actually lead to a strategy to succeed. Become the trusted authority and budget and track cash flow. So that's one part of a 5-part plan for scaling up, which includes your value proposition, your plan, your people, your systems and processes, your promotion, marketing, and sales. I've published a book about it, which is now available on Amazon, or if you'd like an introductory strategy session, drop me a line at tw@innovationconsult.com.au. And thank you for attending. Have a great day.